So, we are going to be seeing today the third-person action game template that was released a little bit like at the end of 2025 or early 2026, right? It's one of the newer multiplayer templates. So we're going to explore some of the pre-made scenes and some of the pre-made assets that are available. And then we're actually going to go and customize and expand and make our own gameplay. So let's see if we can make it happen, right? All right, but with that, let's spend the rest of the time in the Unity editor. Okay, so just for to make sure we cover all bases, this is right now the Unity hub, and everybody has done this probably 1,000 times, and you've created a project before. So make sure that you have Unity 6.3 specifically installed. These templates are available with 6.3 and newer. So the one that we're going to be using today is this one right here, multiplayer third-person gameplay. However, I want to make sure that I give a shout-out to the fact that if any of you haven't used the multiplayer templates before, like the mixed reality tabletop template and the VR multiplayer template, they are freaking awesome. I've used it both personally. It's good for prototyping, and they come pre-built and ready to work right out of the box when you create the project. And in fact, for fans of multiplayer first-person shooter titles, we actually have a multiplayer FPS that actually works with ECS, so an Entity Component System solution with dots, and netcode for entities. But also, with pre-built scenes and assets that you can work with. So, and the other thing, make sure to choose your Unity organization, which one is given to you by default, and create your project with this little icon to make sure that when you create your editor project, a cloud dashboard project, because remember, it's a multiplayer project, so you need access to Unity services. The same kind of cloud project that allows you to use like Unity version control, analytics, AI, and all that. So make sure to leave it like this, and go ahead and create the project. And after a few minutes, let's go into the project. You're gonna go ahead see something like this. So. The template comes with three pre-made scenes, which is like a core, a very basic one, and then a platformer level and a shooter level. So let's go ahead and explore the platformer level to see what we got over here. Okay, we'll go ahead and maximize that. And what you're seeing right now, especially for people that have never worked before in multiplayer games, so it's not like traditional single-player games where you go ahead and you start with your character and you can already jump around and everything. So the first thing you need to do is start a networking session. And this UI that you see right here, it comes already pre-built and ready to go. It's part of Unity's building blocks for either live services, for leaderboards, and they also handle networking sessions. So I'm going to start as a host, and what we're doing right now, we are testing the template, but we're not online yet. What we're doing is a local host session. So it is a networking session, but it is running entirely on my computer. But we see this little character. We can go ahead and move around. We can move the camera with the mouse and move with WASD controls. Now, those little four little blue pots right there, those are the spawn points that come preset. Therefore, however, you can actually play with more than 4 people on this, even when you go online. So you're not limited to just 4 characters. It's just like you get assigned one of these randomly. So let's go and actually explore a little bit. So here we have in our level, we have some platformer challenges over here. We have some moving platforms, and we have these little obstacles that actually kind of push you back. Go ahead and jump over them. Have some collectible coins as well. And by the way, if you fall off, and I totally meant that, it's not like I don't know how to play 3D games, so don't judge me. But yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and take like these different routes. You have this element right here, which plays this pre-made animated scene, like a cool cut scene. You go ahead and you jump in. So, also this little wind turbine that kind of lifts you up. And even this cool little teleporter. So, a lot of cool pre-made pieces that you can work around with and create your own levels. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stop playing this one. I'm gonna go into the other pre-made scene, which is the shooter level, like a third-person shooter level. Okay, so gonna go over here and gonna go into our shooter folder that we have right here, and here we have our test scenes. I'm gonna go ahead and select the pre-made shooter. Okay, let's back out, and let's go ahead and play over here. Here we have a little bit of other geometry to work with. So let's go ahead and play the game. And same thing as before, starting a session, networking, we are running entirely on our computer at the moment. So I'm gonna go ahead and double click here. So we have our character, we have our character, we can go ahead, move it around, similar kind of platformer movement right there with based on the character controller. If you go ahead and right click on your mouse, you can start going ahead and shooting around. If you use the 1 and 2 keys, you can switch between different weapons. And we have a shotgun, we had a handgun, and we also have a trusty, handy grenade launcher that goes ahead and shoots a projectile and explodes. So honestly, lots of cool different pieces that you can work with and create your own level. So that was the pre-made stuff. Let's actually make some cool gameplay with it. So gonna go ahead and stop that and gonna go into my scene. So gonna go into this folder called demo assets and into the scene right here. Start here. So all these assets that you're gonna see, this particular scene layout is not available when you download the template. This is stuff that I made for today. So let's go ahead and play and see what we got going on. So far, we're still testing locally, and we have our little character. It's a copy of the shooter prefab. Remember that it's a copy, and it can go ahead and jump. You can still shoot the same weapons, shoot the same handgun, the shotgun, all that good stuff. However, let's go ahead and face our first challenge. We need to get on top of that platform, so we can go ahead and jump. All gone. No. Cannot make it. Let's go ahead and try again. Jump. Yep. Nope. Cannot make it. Okay. So we need to go ahead and make some changes into our character over here. So let's go and change our player prefab and give it a little bit more abilities. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to go over here into this game object called the network manager. Now, the network manager is the game object that is responsible for handling the network session and letting clients connect or start a new session. So, and if we go over here in the right, we actually see that we have this particular field called the default player prefab. That is the prefab, so the character that gets instantiated when you start the session, and it's this player right here. So here we have our character, and here if we go into the inspector, and you're probably thinking like, holy cow, that is a bunch of game objects. That is a bunch of components, sorry, not game objects, a bunch of components tied to one particular game object. However, that is actually by intention. And in fact, this template, the way that it works is that we actually separated different classes and different abilities or things that the character can do into their own separate, small, compactable and readable classes. And you see like different stuff here, like for example, we see like jump ability, walk ability, and we see stuff like visuals. We see like a little nameplate. That's the code, the small class that handles you seeing the name of the other character when there's another player connected. So let's go ahead. I want to go ahead and add a new movement ability into my player. So I'm going to go into this class right here called the core movement class. So, and we see, first of all of this UI right here, all of this is custom-made editor UI that was made with UI Toolkit. So, and here is where you can actually add or remove different movement abilities from your character. And we see here in this drop-down, we actually have this double jump ability. I'm gonna go ahead and add it. And by the way, that code, that particular ability is already pre-made with the template. And if I go ahead into the bottom on the inspector, we see that now a new ability has been added. Now we have the ability to double jump. Now the other thing that we need to do is, so that's how to double jump, or like the action of double jumping. Well, we need to add when to double jump. So what triggers that double jump? So we need to go into this class here called the core player manager. And here we have what we call our add-ons. Now add-ons define, when they're needed, add-ons define when or what is going to trigger that particular ability. And here, if we see on the drop-down, we actually have a double jump add-on. So I'm going to go ahead and add it right here. And this custom editor UI like manages adding and removing these scripts. So this was actually automatically added for me. Now we have here double jump add-on, the thing that will enable the double jump. So now we need to, so we have some settings here like the double jump height, like if it costs any stamina, which is part of the character. And then we need to give it an event. So and what is that? So this sample contains multiple events that you would normally see in this kind of game. So you would see stuff like, for example, on weapon loaded, on weapon reloaded, or whether a particular action was taken, like a primary action or a jump was done. So we have, oh shoot. Oh man. Ooh, okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and, thank you for the heads up. I'm gonna go ahead and choose this on jump perform event, this on jump perform event. And now, check it out. Let's go back and play the game again. Start. And now we have our double jump ability. And again, I haven't touched a single line of code. I haven't added. It's just make it. Okay. So now the next step is like, if you notice, I'm kind of moving, but the platform is kind of moving behind me. So, okay. So that's not good. We need to be able to have our character actually follow along with the platform. So let's go back into our player prefab. And in fact, I'm going to go ahead and add an ability that doesn't require an add-on. So we already have it over here. We have a moving platform ability. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. And the ability to just like land on a platform and stay with it, it doesn't really require an event or a trigger. It's just something that we want to happen. So I'm going to go ahead. And by the way, that one also comes with the template when you download it. So here we have our character again. Now let's see if we can. Oh no, there we go. It's actually going away from me a little bit. Let's wait until it comes back. And there we go. And now our character stays with our platform. It doesn't move below us. It doesn't leave us behind. Again, no code whatsoever no custom code that I needed to add so far. So I kind of messed up a little bit. So one thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead enable these shortcut that I made for a presentation right here. So I have these teleporters that actually take me to the next challenge. I got a little bit too excited over there. I wanted to show you the next stuff. Okay, so I'm gonna go and jump into this platform. It's gonna take me to the next challenge. That way we don't have to see me kind of go over those platforms again. So we have our double jump, we have everything that we need. However, now we have this challenge, and we have these fans that kind of like knock us back. I can go ahead and kind of try it again. Okay. And let's see if I can make it. Nope, knocks us back. So we need a way to sort of like go below. Like let's say something like a dash ability. And I'm gonna go ahead and stop playing the game. So we need to add this ability into our character. So let's go back into our player prefab. And same as before, same as before, we actually have a dash ability. However, this doesn't come part of the sample. This is something that I created. However, where the hell did I get this dash, supposedly dash ability, right? So luckily, the team that actually made the sample did something really cool. So they actually came with, not only did they give you the sample, but they provided a documentation with a bunch of cool tutorials on how to do different abilities. Like, for example, how to create a dashing ability for your character. And in fact, if we actually see, there are different kinds of tutorials, like how do you add a jetpack? How do you change size when you go ahead and have a little pickup similar to the teleporter? And lots of other ways of extending the gameplay. So what we've been doing is customizing. Now we're extending. So in fact, the actual tutorial contains all the steps needed, including how to set up the actual prefab, like including all the values. So I went ahead and actually followed that tutorial, and that's how this script actually got here. So I'm gonna go ahead back and add the dash ability right here, and then in my core movement. And then remember, since dashing is something that does require kind of like a trigger or an input, I'm gonna go ahead and add what we have is a dash add-on. So the thing that triggers the dash. And same as before, we now see that both our ability and our dash add-on was added. However, these are a lot of parameters that are gonna go ahead and fill out, especially, for example, the add-on, like I need a reference to the dash ability, the event, weapon controller, all that. So one thing I'm gonna do is gonna skip ahead a little bit, especially for time, and I have this player prefab called movement already done. So, and that actually contains all the references set. So go ahead and choose the player prefab from here, movement done. And now if we go into this player prefab, we actually see our dash ability with all the stuff, like, for example, for visual effects and sounds, and how long the duration is gonna be, and for the add-on, like what event is gonna be triggering it, and other references that are needed for the player. So let's go ahead and go back into the sample, play right here. I'm gonna go ahead and move ahead into where we were, and now I actually assigned the dash ability to my left trigger. So, bam, and I can actually have a dash ability, and now I was able to go over the second challenge. Now the last challenge that we're gonna go ahead and face here, we see here that we have like this kind of garden, this kind of tulip garden. Now, I don't like violence a lot. I honestly, especially nowadays. So I wanted to make a game that actually involved shooting. However, no, I didn't want to just shoot other players and whatnot. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna I want to be able to plant more tulips in this garden, but I want to do it through my guns. So I'm gonna stick to my guns to my own idea. So I'm gonna go ahead and make this gun actually be useful for positive purposes. So let's go ahead and decorate a garden with a gun. So let's go ahead and do that. So okay, so we need to do a couple things here. So let's go back. If we go into our character, okay, all well and good. We have the 237 components added to it. And if we go into this component right here, we see that we have a weapon controller. Now, we see a bunch of events, like, for example, on reload, on load, or change weapon. Again, all of these pre-made events that are already available and set up. But we have this kind of object here called a weapon loadout. What the hell is that? Okay, let's take a look. So it's a scriptable object that contains the list of weapons. Remember that I kind of cycled through all the weapons, the grenade launcher and all that. So with that scriptable object, I cycle through the prefabs of all these weapons. So I'm gonna go ahead and yes, I'm gonna go ahead and switch that. I'm gonna go ahead and switch that list of weapons with this one called weapon loadout flowers. And what does that contain? That actually contains this weapon called weapon handgun copy. Let's see what we're working with. So we got a copy of our handgun, the same one that I used before. So I'm gonna switch some things a bit over here. So we have our weapon main game object over here. Make sure that. Oh no, I kind of went too much a little bit. Okay, so this is the weapon. This is the game object that actually holds the weapon data. So if we go over here, again, similar to the player, weapons and other items can actually have these bunch of like abilities or effects to them. So if we go into this class here called modular weapon, here we have some stuff that we can change. So I'm gonna go ahead and first of all change the shooting behavior to instead of hit scan. And by the way, we actually have a script for that contains the behavior of a hit scan. So now I'm gonna go ahead and switch it to projectile shooting and check out what happened. Automatically, the hit scan got removed, and now I have a component dedicated to shooting actual projectiles. Now, why would I want to shoot a projectile? Because I want to shoot a bullet that when it collides with the dirt, it spawns a new tulip. So I'm gonna go ahead and populate this little prefab field that I have right here. And yes, this is the one that actually doesn't show up. So I'm gonna go ahead and choose this projectile bullet flower that I have right here. I'm gonna go ahead and drag it. There we go. For some reason, like trying to find a network object with the little round field doesn't work sometimes, but it happens. It's all good. Okay, so we have a projectile that spawns that whenever it hits the ground, it actually spawns a bullet. And why? Because the bullet also has a bunch of these like modular effects, and we actually have this spawn interactable. So whenever the bullet collides with the right item, the ground, will actually spawn this nice tulip. So let's go ahead. Since we set that up, let's go ahead and try it out. And in fact, let me do like a double check. Weapon controller, weapon loadout flowers. Okay, I think that should be good. Okay, let's go ahead and try it out. 5 minutes? Sweet. Okay. Okay. Now let's go ahead and skip ahead. You know, we don't need to do that again. So now, bam! And we have our tulips, and we are able to plan our garden through guns. So guns for positive use. Thank you. Okay. Now, we've gone ahead and done all this work. However, this is a talk that's called the multiplayer game, right? But we've only seen one character, one player prefab. So let's actually go ahead and fix that. So the first thing we're gonna do is that we're gonna go into my window here. And if you go into this section called multiplayer, we find multiplayer play mode tool. This actually enables virtual players that I can test the scene with. So I'm gonna go ahead and enable a virtual player. And by the way, while this is activating, most likely we're not gonna be able to like do questions on stage. So, but we're gonna be below so we can get more, we can get questions. But okay, so what this does is that it actually spawns a virtual player that can help you to validate your synchronized gameplay. If we go ahead and start the host like we've been doing all this time, okay, all well and good. Now let's go ahead and do the opposite. Let's actually join an existing session. So let's join a client, and we see, okay, we have our characters and we have synchronized our movement. However, I wanna show you something else, especially since we're a little bit short of time. So if I were to try it now, we will I would be able to spawn tulips from one side, then switch to the other window, and spawn tulips as well. However, I want to go ahead and show you something else. I want to show you online gameplay that I recorded playing with my partner at home. So the first thing that we need to do is, since we have this UI that doesn't really help us connect to the internet, we need to enable UI that help us to do that. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over into this game object that is called multiplayer services, and gonna disable this local host one. So what you're seeing right now is UI that actually helps us to connect to the Unity services that we set all the way at the beginning, and lets us to create a session and let other people join if you give them your project. So now I'm gonna go ahead and show you one final thing, and it's this video backup, that I have of us playing over the internet. So I am here running the session and creating a session online. So now it's connecting to Unity services. Here's me. I'm connecting to. I connected to the services, and there's my partner over there. There's an ability that enables to make sure to see the other player's name. We have all the stuff that we've done. She actually teleported to the next challenge. I use the teleportation over there. Then I go ahead, solve the dashing challenge, and then we have the garden, and I just start. She actually made the challenge, and she goes ahead and start decorating the garden with me. So both of us, we went ahead and made a reality where we can both enjoy virtually and shoot flowers and actually decorate the garden. Use guns for positive use. So. Yeah, we had a lot of fun making this, and it's an example. It's silly, but it's an example of what you can do with these templates. So with that, let's go ahead and wrap up. And the only thing I have right now is this one slide that says thank you. And let me go ahead and actually no, the QR is the most important part. So this QR code actually leads to a quick form, a survey that asks you a bunch of questions. So any feedback is more than welcome. However, I do not like to force people to fill out surveys. You can skip all the way to the end and have access to all resources like ebooks, videos. That's what I want you to do. That's what I definitely want to force myself. I want to force myself to share resources for you to learn, not necessarily for you to fill out surveys. However, any feedback is more than welcome. But with that, I say thank you and appreciate it. Thank you. Yes.